Have you noticed that US cities are hitting new records for housing price drops? According to data from Zillow, out of 300 major metropolitan areas, 105 cities have seen their home values decline, marking the biggest drop since 2020. This has some people saying, the moment the Fed cuts interest rates, I'm going to rush in and buy a house. But at the same time, some people in California are frantically selling their homes to go all in on crypto. It's clear that the perception of real estate varies wildly by location. In this episode, we'll use a zip code heat map to show you the housing price trends in different areas. You'll be able to understand the market at a glance. We'll also answer your questions, such as whether a Fed rate cut will be the best time to enter the market, and what's going on with the people who are selling their homes to invest in crypto. Are they seeing a new crisis in the US real estate market? Before we begin, please like this episode. Your support is my biggest motivation to keep creating content. In previous videos, we've shared our analysis of the US housing market by dividing it into three main categories based on inventory levels. This time, we're going to upgrade that analysis to give you an even more intuitive understanding of local housing trends. Take a look at the map. I'll explain how to read it. This is a zip code housing price heat map based on Zillow data. Each small dot represents a local zip code area. The trend of housing prices over the past year can be seen by the color of the dots. For example, in the northeast and central parts of the US, the warmer and brighter the colors, the more rapid the increase in housing prices. Warm colors mean a hot market. In contrast, if you look at the southeast and southern US, the colors aren't warm at all. They are cool, icy blues. The brighter the blue, the more local housing prices have fallen. Cool colors mean the market has cooled down. Finally, let's look at the western US. The colors are neither a bright, warm yellow nor an icy blue. Instead, they are deep purples and dark blues, suggesting a market without much energy. Housing prices in the West are mostly stagnant. The market isn't booming, but it isn't falling as sharply either. This real estate heat map neatly divides the US market into three categories of hot and cold, which perfectly aligns with our previous inventory analysis. I'm sure our more observant viewers have already noticed that while California didn't seem particularly bright before, now many of its major cities are showing up on the list of declining housing prices with bright blue colors. So let's look at which of these declining cities have been hit the hardest. You should be careful. As we discussed in a previous episode, the US real estate market follows a small annual cycle. In the first half of the year, families often want to move in before the new school year starts, so housing prices tend to rise. But now we're in the second half of the year, the traditional slow season, and prices are starting to cool down and correct. So falling prices are a normal part of this cycle and are not necessarily a cause for alarm. However, this recent downturn is a big deal. Out of the 300 cities Zillow analyzed, over 100 are experiencing a decline, which is the largest number since 2020. Let's look at the cities with falling prices and see if your city is on the list and how bad the drop is. Let's look at the chart. We'll use color to indicate the degree of the price drop. Cities with drops of over 5%, heading towards 10% or more, are shown in deep red and purple colors. That's a warning signal for those areas. In contrast, cities with light yellow hues have seen smaller price drops. Let's look at the top 10 cities with the biggest price drops. The cities highlighted in green are in Florida. Out of the 10 cities with the most significant drops, 8 are in Florida. The only two exceptions are Honolulu, Hawaii at number 5 and Austin, Texas at number 7, which we've previously done a deep dive on. We can conclude that in the second half of the year, during the real estate off-season, this downward trend is not going to change anytime soon, especially in areas where housing inventory is piling up. You need to remember, if you're trying to snag a deal in the second half of the year, you should be extremely cautious in the top 10 areas with the sharpest price drops. For instance, in Florida, you need to be wary of homes in flood zones. As a developer, we have to raise the ground level in these areas. Can you be sure that the cheap house you're eyeing has had that work done so it won't get flooded in the next storm? Another thing to watch is home insurance. In some areas, Insurance companies have pulled out in droves and have yet to return. If you buy a house there, you're stuck with the property. And if you can't get insurance, who will buy it from you? These are uncontrollable risks. I also want to pass on a tip from a friend's past comments. Never rush to buy a home just because everyone else is. Be especially wary of places where everyone says they got a great deal, or people are trying to pull you in on an investment. It's better to rent a home than to fall for a so-called bargain. You may have noticed that there are no California cities in the top 10. So, which cities in California are seeing price drops, and where do they rank? Is it low enough for us to find a deal? In our last 2 episodes, we shared our analysis of the different housing markets in Northern and Southern California. A viewer commented that they feel the housing market in California correcting, but they're not sure if the price drops are consistent across the state or what the rankings are. Let's look at the rankings for California. We'll continue down the list from before. San Francisco is at number 20. Santa Rosa is at number 29. Both are in Northern California. In the 30 to 50 range, we start seeing California cities like Sacramento and Riverside. The most concentrated price drops are outside of the top 50. So, do you think these drops are significant enough? Do the current price drops in California satisfy you? We have to compare them to previous years to get a full picture. Do you remember the last housing boom, which started in 2020 when the Fed cut rates? Prices in many areas doubled in just 2 or 3 years. Look at the chart again. This is a summary of the core cities with the highest price increases and decreases across U.S. metropolitan areas. For example, some of the cities with the biggest price increases were Cleveland, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. These are all cities I visited on my recent business trip to the East Coast. I plan to share the highlights of that trip in a future episode. If you want to see these analyses of the latest U.S. city trends sooner, please like this video and leave a comment below telling me which cities you'd like to see covered first. We'll prioritize editing and releasing the most requested topics. Let's get back to the rankings. Even with the price drops, the price in San Francisco is still 18% higher than in 2020. In San Diego, it's 51% higher. Sacramento is 30% higher, Riverside is 49% higher, Silicon Valley is 36% higher, and Los Angeles is 40% higher. Prices haven't returned to 2020 levels, not by a long shot. Of course, we all wish we could go back to that time when homes were affordable and mortgages weren't so stressful. That was the most ideal and healthy housing environment for America. As the Fed continues to cut rates in the second half of the year, we will continue to follow the latest real estate developments. Next, let's take a quick look at housing prices in core cities from the East Coast to the West Coast. The U.S. median home price this month is $394,000, up from $389,000 this time last year. We'll answer a viewer question for each region. For the Northeast, a viewer commented that new homes are too expensive, so they have no choice but to buy old ones. What should they do? Here are the housing price trends for the Northeast, New York. $810,000 this month, up from $764,000 last year. Boston, $772,000 this month, up from $746,000 last year. A friend asked to include Fairfield County, CT, $750,000 this month, up from $705,000 last year. Worcester, Massachusetts, $480,000 this month, up from $460,000 last year. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, $309,000 this month, down from $310,000 last year. Washington, D.C., $545,000 this month, down from $573,000 last year. Montgomery County, MD, $638,000 this month, up from $630,000 last year. Providence, Rhode Island, $514,000 this month, up from $497,000 last year. For the Northeast, a friend asked a question about wanting to trade their condo for a single-family home. They're hesitant because the homes are old and worn out, but new homes are too expensive. What should they choose? During my recent trip to the Northeast, I drove for a long time outside of Boston and saw very little new development. It's true that old homes are the main option there. So, how can you improve the comfort of an old home? A viewer from Boston who was planning to sell their home next spring asked me for advice. Here's what we came up with for low-cost, high-quality renovations, which might be helpful for you. First, one of the most frustrating things about old homes is the kitchen and bathroom. You have the most contact with these areas every day. Old tiles with dated colors can be repainted, and fixtures that you can't clean anymore should be replaced with new ones. This can dramatically improve the interior quality of an old house. Second, old hardwood floors are beautiful but very expensive to replace. You can consider replacing sections with high-quality vinyl flooring. I talked about this in a previous renovation episode. It's cheap, waterproof, and durable, and you can get it with various patterns and wood textures to make it look just as good, which also improves the quality of life. Third, a fresh coat of paint. Many old homes have small windows and, in older communities, lots of trees, so the interiors can be dark. Painting the interior with a lighter color can make the room feel much brighter. Whether you're renting it out or selling it, a clean, bright, and pleasing interior is always a plus, and it's a very low-cost way to improve the quality of your living space. Now, let's look at the Southeast where things are less stressful. Interest rates are coming down. Will homes in the Southeast be snapped up again? Here are the housing price trends for the Southeast. Richmond, Virginia, $401,000 this month, up from $400,000 last year. Virginia Beach, Virginia, $411,000 this month, up from $393,000 last year. Raleigh, North Carolina, $452,000 this month, up from $437,000 last year. Charlotte, North Carolina, $519,000 this month, up from $481,000 last year. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, $342,000 this month, up from $339,000 last year. Louisville, Kentucky, $293,000 this month, up from $278,000 last year. Nashville, Tennessee, $485,000 this month, up from $459,000 last year. Atlanta, Georgia, $404,000 this month, up from $396,000 last year. A friend from Atlanta commented, "Richard, when will you come back to Atlanta?" With a rate cut coming in September, what do you think of Atlanta's real estate advantage in the next round of cuts? Will prices surge again? It's clear that Jerome Powell's job as Fed chairman is not an easy one. Just a hint of a 0.25% rate cut sends the stock market soaring. But is the effect on housing prices so immediate? Unfortunately, no. It's much more complicated than that. First, let's talk about the size of the rate cut. I think a 0.25% cut is the most Powell is willing to do this time. We've talked about the magic number for mortgage rates, which is around 5.5%, a point where a lot of people will start entering the market. I think it's very difficult to reach 5.5% this year, and even next year is uncertain. Second, you have to look at the local supply and demand dynamics of the real estate market. Housing market analysis is very simple. It comes down to three factors. The first long-term factor is population. The last time Atlanta's housing prices went crazy was because of a huge influx of people. There was a strong demand for primary residences. In addition, institutional investors saw it as a speculative opportunity and started buying up homes. Now, if you look at the local demand, the kind of population boom we saw before probably won't happen again. Without a huge local demand, how can we expect housing prices to surge? Of course, good homes in good school districts and good locations with good amenities will still see a moderate increase. This is true for the whole country. Everyone wants to snatch up scarce properties. Honestly, from a personal perspective, I genuinely don't want Atlanta to become a hotbed of real estate speculation. Those kinds of drastic ups and downs in housing prices are not good for ordinary people who just want to live a peaceful life. I love Atlanta and I want it to do well, which means I don't want to see a speculative frenzy. I'd rather see the young population grow steadily. Otherwise, we'll run into the same problem as Florida. What's the future of a real estate market where the mortality rate is high and there aren't enough young people to replace them? Let's move on to Florida. Here are the housing price trends for Florida. Tampa, $379,000 this month, up from $374,000 last year. Jacksonville, $377,000 this month, up from $370,000 last year. Miami, $570,000 this month, up from $540,000 last year. West Palm Beach, $470,000 this month, down from $490,000 last year. Orlando, $407,000 this month, down from $410,000 last year. Sarasota, $406,000 this month, down from $420,000 last year. Fort Lauderdale, $445,000 this month, up from $433,000 last year. A viewer commented, "Richard, I've analyzed Florida's demographics, and the mortality rate is relatively high. If there aren't new people immigrating in, can just getting rid of property taxes, which many people are asking for, solve Florida's current housing problem?" I'll start with my conclusion. Without an influx of new residents, Florida's housing market cannot be fixed by just eliminating property taxes. Property taxes are important, but not in the way many people think they are. I'll explain why in a moment. Let's first talk about Florida's population. Look at this population migration chart. The net migration into Florida has returned to 2020 levels. In 2022, when the population and housing prices were soaring, the market was in a buying frenzy. So Florida's real estate market is highly dependent on new residents. Its internal market cannot sustain itself through internal transactions alone. The growth of the real estate market is driven by people from the Northeast and Midwest moving in to retire, and by international buyers picking up premium properties. We did an episode on international buyers, and the data showed that people from Europe, Canada, and South America love to buy in Florida. All of these external factors are what support the state's housing market. Now let's go back to property taxes. The cost of buying a home isn't just property tax. There are many other expenses. The real factor that's been driving away buyers, including native Floridians, is the cost of insurance. Even if you don't have to pay property tax, if a natural disaster hits and the insurance company pulls out, it's a huge risk. So, I believe the core of Florida's real estate development is to attract people to the state and have the state government provide a reliable insurance backstop, or at least hold the insurance companies accountable to continue providing coverage. Property taxes are just icing on the cake. Otherwise, people from the Midwest who move to Florida might just end up moving back to the Midwest again. Here are the housing price trends for the central U.S. Chicago, Illinois, $373,000 this month, up from $356,000 last year. Ann Arbor, Michigan, $430,000 this month, up from $404,000 last year. Oakland County, MI, $397,000 this month, up from $364,000 last year. Minneapolis, Minnesota, $397,000 this month, up from $385,000 last year. Madison, Wisconsin, $435,000 this month, down from $441,000 last year. Cincinnati, Ohio, $316,000 this month, up from $304,000 last year. Columbus, Ohio, $355,000 this month, up from $352,000 last year. A friend asked to include Kansas City, Missouri, $427,000 this month, up from $410,000 last year. The situation in the Midwest and Northeast is very similar. Local inventory is extremely tight. You can think of it this way. Even though Madison seems far away from places like New York and Boston, they share the same structural housing crisis. This brings us back to the three factors of real estate analysis. The first long-term factor is population. This chart shows Madison's population forecast from its municipal development plan, which we use for urban planning. Population has been growing steadily for the past 5 years. Based on this curve, the demand for housing will continue to increase until 2030 and even 2050. Let's focus on the near future. We still have 5 years until 2030, and the question is, can Madison's housing supply keep up with the demand and keep prices in check? Let's look at the official development project plans. This is the latest update I could get, from July 31st. The city plans to build at least 15,000 new housing units by 2030 to meet local demand. That means they need to build at least 3,000 units per year. But now, more than halfway through the year, they've only completed about 1,200. The pressure is huge. Some might say there's still half a year left. But construction is much harder in the north because of the weather. After October, you can't build at the same speed, and many types of construction have to stop entirely. If they can't meet their target in the first year, the pressure will only increase in the following years. If they can't build houses fast enough to keep up with population growth, they will face a structural housing shortage, just like New York and Boston. The market dynamics are the same. More people and fewer houses drive up both rent and home prices. It's not like Texas. Speaking of Texas, here are its housing price trends. Dallas, $416,000 this month, down from $431,000 last year. Austin, $442,000 this month, unchanged from last year. Houston, $341,000 this month, down from $344,000 last year. San Antonio, $325,000 this month, up from $312,000 last year. A viewer asked, "Richard, I saw that Lennar has created a new real estate trading website where you can buy investment properties directly, bypassing the agent. Will this kind of direct-to-builder sales model spread to other states and affect local housing prices?" This is a direct result of Lennar's massive inventory. I remember seeing in their last quarterly report that they had over 100,000 unsold homes, a new high for inventory in 15 years. What happened 15 years ago? 2010. That was a great time, wasn't it? A time when everyone had such high hopes. But now, 15 years later, inventory is piling up, and they have tens of thousands of homes they can't sell. What can they do? If you were the head of Lennar, what would you do? Who would you want to sell to? As we discussed in a previous episode, investors are divided by the number of homes they own, 1 to 9, 10 to 99, or over 100. The people who are still actively buying homes are not the giant institutional investors at the top or the small-time investors at the bottom. They are the ones in the middle. So Lennar's website is designed to appeal to these specific buyers. And this kind of platform isn't just for the Texas market, it's just that Texas is the hardest hit by the inventory crisis. This type of platform for filtering investment properties already exists for large institutions. They have their own databases and data sharing agreements with builders. Small-time investors and retail buyers didn't have access to this kind of internal data before. The website gives you all the information investors want: neighborhood trends, rental income projections, mortgage rate discounts, and future rental income forecasts. I personally think the intention of this system is good, but you have to be careful. The data and forecasts provided have a marketing angle. They want you to buy homes, so they present the data in a very optimistic light. The goal is to clear inventory, so be careful with these investment data forecasts. I must stress this again. Don't trust what you see online. Don't trust what you see online. When it comes to buying a home, you must be a diligent person and go see it in person. There is no buyer's remorse for online purchases. A viewer from the West Coast was badly scammed after buying a house online. Finally, California. Here are the housing price trends for California. San Francisco, California, $1. $48 million this month, up from $1.46 million last year. San Jose, California, $1.55 million this month, up from $1.505 million last year. Sacramento, California, $593,000 this month, up from $588,000 last year. Los Angeles County, CA, $918,000 this month, up from $908,000 last year. Orange County, CA, $1.199 million this month, up from $1.185 million last year. Riverside County, CA, $603,000 this month, down from $617,000 last year. San Bernardino County, CA, $543,000 this month, down from $540,000 last year. San Diego, California, $911,000 this month, up from $894,000 last year. A viewer commented, "Richard, do you think people in California are giving up on real estate? Why else would people in Irvine be selling their homes to invest in crypto? The California real estate market can't be over, can it?" Over the past 6 months, I've seen many comments from California viewers saying they've sold their homes to invest in crypto. It's not just one house. Some have sold 2 or 3. They are going all in on crypto because they are convinced it's the future. So I think you're right. This is not an isolated case. I even wonder if they have their own crypto group. You're in the real estate group, but they might be in a crypto group. For them, real estate is a side project. Maybe in their group, person A says, "I sold my house and went all in on crypto," and they post it on social media. They create a group, and everyone decides to sell their houses together and speculate on crypto. I don't think it's impossible. Why else would so many people be doing this together? I won't comment on individual investment decisions. Everyone has their own choices. But I will say that for places like Irvine and the Bay Area, where housing prices are already very high, the rate of return is actually quite low. Rental increases are limited, and the cost of holding the property is very expensive. So, for some homebuyers in Irvine or the Bay Area, the house isn't a primary residence. It's just an asset in their portfolio. When they evaluate that crypto could bring them a faster return, and that crypto is the future of finance, they may decide to sell their house. After all, real estate has low liquidity, but crypto has very high liquidity. I think that's why they're choosing the market they're more bullish on. But I don't think this is a mainstream choice. Not everyone has the courage to do it. A house in the Bay Area or Irvine can be worth $3 million or even $5 million. If you sell 2 or 3 homes to raise $10 million to invest in crypto, you can be sure that this group has other assets in their portfolio. Crypto is just one of their liquid asset options. They might even see a house in Irvine as a burden. It makes more sense to turn that house into cash and put it to work. So I welcome all of you to share your thoughts on asset allocation between real estate, stocks, and crypto. What do you think is a good balance? How do you see these things? Do you support the bold investment strategy of selling your house and going all in on crypto? I look forward to hearing your insights. Thank you for your likes and subscriptions, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next exciting share.